I know how this sounds. Like a scene from something you'd watch on a streaming service while folding laundry. But it's not. It's the thing that actually happened on a Thursday night in November, in a ballroom that smelled like burnt chocolate and overpriced steak. I was 47 years old, mother of two, regional sales director for a medical supply company that you've probably never heard of, and I'd been married to Tom for 22 years. The trophy they handed me that night is still sitting on my dresser. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe because it's the only thing I ever won that I actually earned. I was standing by the dessert table at the Marriott downtown, the one with the chocolate fountain that had been running for 3 hours and was starting to smell burnt, when my husband walked on stage to accept my award. He didn't see me. He was too busy smiling at the CEO. I watched him straighten his tie, the one I bought him last Christmas, and I thought about how I'd told him that morning I had a headache and might skip the banquet. He said, "You work too hard, honey. Rest up. I'll represent the family." That was at 8:15 a.m. I was at my desk by 9 o'clock, and by 11:30, I had forwarded myself a year's worth of his emails. The AV tech was a kid named Marcus, maybe 22, who'd spent the pre-dinner hour complaining about his girlfriend's cat. I'd asked him if he could pull up a PowerPoint from a flash drive if I gave him the signal. He said, "Sure thing, Miss Chin," and then went back to scrolling on his phone. So when Tom walked up those stairs and they announced his name for the Q4 Sales Excellence Award, and the whole room clapped, and the guy from the regional office was already handing him the crystal trophy, I just lifted my champagne glass and tapped the rim with my fork. Not hard. Just once. Marcus saw me. He'd been waiting. The screen behind the stage flickered and the spreadsheet came up, the one I'd built in October, the one with my formulas, my annotations, my initials in the file properties that I'd never bothered to hide. And then the email, the one where Tom wrote, "I can't handle the numbers this quarter. Can you just run them and I'll present? I owe you one." The CEO stood up. The crowd whistled. I was still holding the fork when Tom looked down at me from the stage, and I saw his mouth open. He didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. That's where it starts, I guess. Right there. With everyone watching, the CEO handed me the trophy and the room went from cheering to silence so fast it felt like someone had pulled a plug. There's no other way to describe it. One second they were clapping and whistling, and the next they were just sitting there, forks in the air, napkins in their laps, all of them staring at me like I'd just walked through a wall. I took the trophy. I didn't thank him. I didn't say a word to anyone. I just held it against my chest like it was a baby I was trying to keep warm, and I walked out of that ballroom through the side exit. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see Tom's face. I didn't want to see anyone's face. The hallway was empty. It was that weird hotel corridor with beige carpet and gold sconces that never seemed to give off real light. I stood there for a minute just breathing. The trophy was cold. The fork was still in my other hand. I didn't remember grabbing it off the table, but it was there, the tines catching the light. I dropped it in a trash can by the elevator. I didn't want to explain that to anyone either. I drove home. I don't remember the drive. I remember the car, though. My Subaru Outback with the cracked windshield from a rock on the highway last spring. The heater takes forever to kick in, and I was shivering the whole way. I got home at about 8:30. The house was dark. The kids weren't there. My daughter was at a friend's house for a sleepover, and my son was still at school, 3 states away. I sat in the driveway for a long time. I didn't want to go inside. Because inside was the house Tom and I had bought 15 years ago. Inside was the dining room where we'd celebrated our anniversaries. Inside was the bedroom where I'd spent 22 years believing he was a good man. I went in anyway. I set the trophy on the dresser in the hallway, and I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking. I stood there in the dark, drinking water, looking at the stove. That's where I'd been standing a year ago when he first came home late and told me it was client dinner with some guy from Seattle. I'd believed him. I'd reheated his plate and asked if he'd had a good day. He'd said yes. That was the lie. The easy one. The one that made everything else possible. I didn't cry then either. I'm not a crier. Never have been. My mother used to say I was too hard-hearted for my own good. But that's not true. I just save it for when it matters. And that night, standing in the dark kitchen with a glass of water in my hand, I knew that crying wouldn't fix anything. Crying wouldn't unspreadsheet my spreadsheet. Crying wouldn't make Tom not have used it. Crying wouldn't make the past year of late nights and strange excuses and the perfume I'd smelled on his collar disappear. The perfume. That was the other thing. I'd forgotten about it until I was standing there. It was a night in September. He came home at 11 and he smelled like flowers. Not my flowers. I don't wear perfume. I'm allergic to most of it. And he'd been at a conference in San Francisco. But he smelled like gardenias, and he had a hickey on his neck that he tried to hide with his collar. I saw it. I didn't say anything. I was too tired. I was always too tired. That's the part that gets me now. The tiredness. I was so tired from doing everything. Work and kids and the house and the groceries and the doctor's appointments and the school forms and the car inspections and the insurance claims and the holiday cards and the thank you notes and the birthday parties and the parent-teacher conferences and all of it. All of it. And Tom was tired too. That's what he said. He was tired from work. He was tired from the pressure. He was tired from the travel. And I believed him. I believed him because I was tired too, and I thought we were in it together. We were not in it together. The phone rang at 9. I let it go to voicemail. It was Tom. I could see his name on the screen. I didn't pick up. He called twice more. Then he stopped. I didn't check the messages. I didn't need to hear what he had to say. I knew what he would say. He would say he was sorry. He would say he didn't mean it. He would say I was overreacting. He would say I should have talked to him first. He would say we could fix this. He would say all the things men say when they've been caught. I'd heard it before. Not from him. From other women. I'd sat through enough lunches and enough happy hours to know the script by heart. I went to bed. I slept alone. I woke up at 4 in the morning and I stared at the ceiling and I thought about my life. Every single choice I'd made. Every single time I'd put someone else first. Every single time I'd told myself that it didn't matter, that I didn't need recognition, that I was just being a good wife and a good mother and a good employee, and that someone, eventually, would notice and appreciate it. No one noticed. No one appreciated it. Tom had taken my work and called it his own, and he had done it so easily, so smoothly, that I had to wonder how long it had been going on. Years, maybe. Maybe our entire marriage. Maybe every single promotion he ever got, every single good review, every single pat on the back from the CEO, had been built on something I'd done in the background, something I'd handed over without a thought because I was his wife, and that's what wives do. I got up at 5. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table and I opened my laptop and I started looking through everything. Every file. Every email. Every project. I went back 3 years. For years. 5. I looked at the dates and the times and the file properties and I cross-referenced them with his performance reviews. And I started to see a pattern. It wasn't just the Q4 numbers. It was everything. Reports. Presentations. Analysis. All of it. He'd been taking my work for years and nobody had noticed because I was invisible. I was just the wife. I was just the woman in the background doing all the work while he got all the credit. By 6:30, I had a folder full of evidence. Emails. Spreadsheets. Property screens. I wasn't even angry at that point. I was past it. I was in that cold, clear space where you can see everything for what it is. Tom wasn't just a liar. He was a taker. He'd been taking from me for our entire marriage, and I had let him because I thought that's what love was. I thought love was giving and giving and giving until you had nothing left. I was wrong. At 7, the phone rang again. Tom. I answered this time. Where are you? He said. His voice was shaky. I've been calling all night. I'm home. Home, why did you leave? What the hell was that? I didn't answer. I just waited. That was crazy, he said. That was insane. What did you think you were doing in front of everyone? Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? Yeah, I said. I think I do. You should have talked to me first. We could have worked something out. Worked something out, the numbers. The presentation. It was just a mistake. I meant to tell you. I don't know, I got caught up in the moment. Caught up in the moment. I said it flat. I couldn't even make it sound like a question. Yes. Caught up. Look, I know it looks bad, but we can fix this. I'll talk to the CEO. I'll explain. I'll tell him it was a miscommunication. You'll tell him you lied. I didn't lie. You just what, Tom, you just stole my work and presented it as your own. You just used me. You just made me look like a fool. Nobody thinks you're a fool. They were cheering for you. They were cheering because I humiliated you. Is that what you wanted? Is that what this was, revenge? I didn't answer. I didn't have an answer. I wasn't sure what I wanted. I just knew I was done pretending. I'm coming home, he said. We need to talk about this. Don't. What, don't come home? I'm not ready to talk to you. Elena, please. I hung up. I didn't want to hear the word please. I didn't want to hear anything that sounded like begging. Because begging wasn't sorry. Begging was just a different kind of manipulation. Begging was just another way to make me feel guilty for being angry. I sat at the table for a long time. The sun came up. The house got light. I looked around the kitchen and I saw my life. The coffee maker Tom had bought me for my birthday 5 years ago. The magnets on the fridge from the places we'd gone on vacation. The photo of our kids on the counter, the one with the crooked frame that I'd been meaning to fix for months. All of it felt like a museum. Like something I'd visited once, but didn't live in. I made a decision. Not a big one. Just a small one. I opened my laptop and I typed out a formal complaint to HR. I attached the emails. I attached the file properties. I attached the spreadsheets. I wrote a short explanation and I hit send. It took 10 minutes. It was the easiest thing I'd done all year. Then I called a lawyer. Her name was Diane. I found her on Yelp. She had 4.5 stars and an office in a strip mall near the highway. I didn't want a fancy lawyer. I didn't want someone who would look at me like I was trying to ruin a good man's career. I wanted someone who would tell me the truth about what I was entitled to. I wanted to know what the next 20 years of my life were going to look like without Tom in them. I got to her office at 9. She was already there. She was a small woman with gray hair and glasses on a chain, and she made me tea and listened to my story and didn't interrupt once. So, she said when I finished. You want a divorce. I want to be free. Those aren't the same thing. They're in this case. She nodded. She wrote some things down. She asked me about our assets. Our accounts. Our retirement funds. The house. The cars. The kids. I told her everything. I told her about the late nights and the excuses and the perfume on his collar. I told her about the spreadsheet. I told her about the trophy. She said, you might have a case for professional misconduct. It's not the same as a divorce case, but it's leverage. Leverage for what, anything you want. I thought about that. I thought about what I wanted. And I realized, for the first time in my life, that I didn't know. I'd spent 22 years wanting things for other people. For Tom. For the kids. For my boss. For my mother. I'd never stopped to think about what I wanted for myself. I want the house, I said. I want the kids. And I want him to stop taking from me. Done, she said. Just like that. Done. Like it was the easiest thing in the world. I wanted to believe her. I called in sick to work. I spent the afternoon packing Tom's things into garbage bags. It wasn't a rage thing. It was practical. I didn't want to see him in the morning. I didn't want to smell his cologne in the hallway. I wanted him gone. And I wanted him to know that I was the one who made that decision. He came home at 5. I heard his key in the lock. I heard him walk through the living room. I heard him stop at the bottom of the stairs. Elena, I was standing in the kitchen. The bags were on the porch. I didn't say anything. Elena, please. Can we just talk? I walked out to the hallway. He was standing there in his work clothes. His tie was loosened. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept. I didn't feel sorry for him. I sent the evidence to HR. I said, what are the emails? The spreadsheets. Everything. Elena. You didn't. I did. And I called a lawyer. Your things are on the porch. I want you to leave. Leave where? I don't care. Just not here. He stared at me. For a second, I thought he might try to argue. But he didn't. He just stood there and looked at me, and I could see it happening. The moment he realized he'd lost. He'd spent his whole life getting what he wanted, and now he was standing in the hallway of the house he'd helped pay for, and he had nothing. Elena, he said, and his voice cracked. Don't, I said. Don't say my name like that. Don't pretend you're the victim here. I'm not pretending. I'm not. I know I messed up. You did more than mess up. You stole from me. You lied to me. And I think you've been doing it for years. He didn't deny it. He just looked at the floor. Go, I said. Go to your girlfriend's house. Go to a hotel. I don't care. Just go. Girlfriend, don't. Don't even try. He opened his mouth. And then he closed it. He walked to the porch. He picked up the garbage bags. He put them in his car. And then he drove away. I stood in the doorway and watched his taillights disappear. I didn't cry. I still didn't cry. But I felt something. A loosening, maybe. Like a knot that had been tied too tight for too long. I went back inside and I locked the door and I walked to the bedroom. The trophy was still on the dresser. I picked it up. I looked at my reflection in the glass. I didn't know who I was going to be next. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be his wife anymore. The next morning, I woke up in a house that felt like it had been emptied of everything except furniture. I got up, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table in the same spot I always sat, and I looked at the empty chair across from me, and I felt nothing. That scared me more than the anger. The nothing. My phone buzzed at 7:30. HR. The head of HR, actually, a woman named Patricia who had never spoken to me directly in 6 years. She asked if I could come in for a meeting at 9. I said yes. I showered, put on my navy blue suit, the one I wore for client presentations, and I drove to work like it was a normal day. The office was quiet when I got there. It's always quiet in the mornings, but this was a different kind of quiet. People were looking at me. Not staring exactly. Just looking. Like I was someone they'd seen on the news and couldn't quite place. I walked past the cubicles and the conference rooms and the water cooler where I'd stood 1,000 times making small talk with people I'd never see outside of this building, and I didn't stop to say hi to anyone. I walked straight to Patricia's office. She was already waiting. She had a folder on her desk. My folder, I guessed. Or Tom's. She stood up when I came in and shook my hand and closed the door behind me. Have a seat, Elena. I sat. She sat across from me. She looked tired. Maybe she'd been up all night dealing with this. I didn't care. I read your email, she said. I want to be upfront with you. This is serious. We've put Tom on administrative leave pending an investigation. What kind of investigation? An internal review. We're going to go through the files you sent. We're going to talk to other people in the department. We're going to get a full picture of what happened. I can give you the full picture. I already did. I know. And I appreciate that. But we have a process. We have to follow it. I nodded. I understood process. I'd been in corporate America long enough to understand that process was just another word for delay. In the meantime, she said, I want to talk to you about what you want. What I want, I know this is a delicate situation. You and Tom are married. That complicates things. Not anymore. She looked at me. She didn't ask what I meant. She was too professional for that. But I saw her register it. Okay, she said. Then let me ask you this. Do you want to pursue formal disciplinary action, or do you want to settle this internally? What does internally mean? It means we handle it in-house. We reassign Tom. We adjust his compensation. We put a note in his file. It stays quiet. No lawsuit. No media attention. Nothing. And formal action, that means we fire him. We make a public statement. We could potentially press charges for professional misconduct. It's a bigger deal. It's a Messier deal. I thought about it. I thought about Tom's face on the stage. I thought about the trophy in my hands. I thought about the perfume on his collar and the late nights and the spreadsheet he'd stolen and the years of everything I'd given him. I want him fired, I said. Patricia didn't flinch. She just wrote something down in her folder. Understood, she said. I'll start the process. But I want you to understand something. This is going to be hard. He's going to fight it. He's going to say you're lying. He's going to try to make you look like the bad guy. Let him. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She nodded. She stood up. She shook my hand again and she said she'd be in touch. I left her office. I walked back through the cubicles and the conference rooms and the water cooler. And this time, when I walked past, people didn't just look. They spoke. Elena. It was Linda. From accounting. The one who'd told me Tom knocked it out of the park. Hey, Linda. I heard, she said. I heard what happened at the banquet. Are you okay? I'm fine. Bullshit. You're not fine. Nobody's fine after something like that. I almost laughed. She was right. I wasn't fine. I wasn't anything close to fine. But I didn't want to stand there and talk about it. I have to go, I said. I have a call. I didn't have a call. I just needed to get out of there. I went in my office, which was really just a glass box with a desk and a chair, and I closed the door and I sat down and I looked at the computer screen and I waited for something to happen. Nothing happened. Not that morning. Not that afternoon. I answered emails. I returned client calls. I did my job. It was the most ordinary day of my life. At 5 o'clock, I drove home. The house was still empty. Tom's car wasn't in the driveway. I unlocked the front door and I walked in and I smelled something. Smoke. I thought maybe the kitchen had caught fire, but no. It was coming from the living room. I walked in and there he was. Tom. Sitting on the couch. Smoking a cigarette. He didn't smoke. He'd quit 10 years ago. Your things are on the porch, I said. I need to talk to you. The porch, Tom. Just sit down. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I didn't sit. I stood in the doorway. Your lawyer called me, he said. He told me what you're planning. You want the house. You want the kids. You want to take everything. I want half of everything. That's what I'm entitled to. That's not what you're doing. You're trying to destroy me. I'm trying to take what's mine. You're ruining my career. You ruined your own career when you stole my work. He stood up. He flicked ash into a coffee cup on the table. His hand was shaking. I know I messed up, he said. I know what I did was wrong. But you have to understand. I was under so much pressure. The expectations, Elena. The expectations were insane. And I didn't know how to handle it. I saw your work and I thought this would save me. I thought I could use it just this once and then fix it later. Just this once? What? This wasn't just this once. I looked back through everything. The last 3 years. You've been using my work over and over again. Every quarterly review. Every presentation. Every single thing you got credit for, I was the one who did the work. He didn't deny it. He just stood there with the cigarette in his hand, and he looked at me like he was waiting for me to say something that would make it okay. Who is she? I said. What are the women you've been seeing? He didn't answer. That was my answer. Her name, I said. I want to know her name. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You smelled like her. You had a mark on your neck. You came home late and you said it was client dinners and I believed you because I was stupid. You're not stupid. Then tell me her name. Elena, please. Her name. He put the cigarette out in the cup. He sat back down on the couch. He looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Like something had been sucked out of him. Rachel, he said. Her name is Rachel. How long? 4 months. 4 months. 5. I don't know. 4 or 5. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. She's in marketing. She's 29. It was nothing. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough that you lied to me. I didn't want to hurt you. Too late for that. He stood up again. He walked toward me. I took a step back. Don't, I said. Elena, I love you. I've always loved you. You love yourself. You love what I do for you. You love the way I make your life easier. But you don't love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have taken my work. If you loved me, you wouldn't have lied to me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have come home smelling like someone else. He opened his mouth. And then he closed it. He stood there, frozen. Leave, I said. Take the rest of your things and go. And don't come back. He didn't move. Tom. Leave. He walked to the porch. He picked up the rest of the garbage bags. He carried them to his car. And then he drove away again. I locked the door behind him. I went to the living room. I opened the windows. The cigarette smell was everywhere. I sprayed Febreze on the couch. I threw the coffee cup in the trash. I scrubbed the ashtray with a sponge. I cleaned until the smell was gone. And then I sat down on the couch where he'd been sitting and I realized something. He told me her name. Rachel. 29. Marketing. And I realized I didn't care. I didn't care that he'd been with someone else. I didn't care that she was younger and prettier and probably more fun. I only cared that he'd lied. I only cared that he'd taken from me. I only cared that he'd made me feel like I was invisible. That's the thing about betrayal. The affair is just the surface. What's underneath is something else. It's the feeling that you don't matter. That you're just a utility. That you're there to make someone else's life easier, and that's all you are. I wasn't going to be that anymore. The next week was a blur. I went to work. I did my job. I talked to Patricia. I talked to my lawyer. I talked to the kids. My daughter, Sarah, was 14 and she didn't understand why her father wasn't coming home. My son, Mark, was 19 and he didn't want to talk about it. I told them the truth. Not all of it. Just enough. I said their father and I were having problems and we were going to get a divorce. Sarah cried. Mark went silent. That was it. I didn't see Tom again until the hearing. That was 2 weeks later. The company had convened a formal review board. 3 people I'd never met. Patricia was there. Tom was there. I was there. We sat in a conference room with fluorescent lights and a water pitcher on the table, and we went through the evidence. The emails. The spreadsheets. The file properties. Everything. Tom didn't look at me. He stared at the table. He answered questions. He said he was sorry. He said it was a mistake. He said he'd been under pressure. He said all the things I knew he'd say. The board deliberated for 3 hours. And then they called us back in. They fired him. Not just from his position. From the company. They said the evidence was clear and the misconduct was egregious, and they had no choice but to terminate his employment effective immediately. Tom stood up. He walked to the door. He paused. He looked at me. For a second, I thought he might say something. He didn't. He walked out. The board left. Patricia left. It was just me and the water pitcher. I sat there for a long time. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad. I was just done. I'd spent 22 years being his wife, and now I wasn't. And I didn't know who I was supposed to be next. I went home. I called Diane. I told her what happened. She said it was good news. She said it would help my divorce case. I said okay, and then I hung up and I sat on the couch and I stared at the wall. Sarah came home at 4. She walked in, dropped her backpack, and sat down next to me. Mom, she said. Are you okay? I'm fine, honey. Dad called me. He told me what happened at work. Did he? He said you ruined his life. I didn't say anything. Did you? She asked. Did you ruin his life? No, I said. I didn't ruin his life. I just told the truth. She looked at me. I could see her working through it. She was 14. She was too young to understand all of it. But she was old enough to know that something bad had happened. Mom, she said. I don't want to take sides. You don't have to take sides. You just have to be okay with whatever happens. Are you going to be okay? I looked at my daughter. She had my eyes. She had my mouth. She had all the things I'd passed on to her without meaning to. Yeah, I said. I think I will be. I didn't believe it when I said it. But I wanted to. I wanted to believe that I could be okay. That I could be something besides his wife. That I could be someone on my own. That's the beginning of the rest of it. I'm still figuring out what it means. The story isn't over. But I know one thing for sure. I'm not invisible anymore. The divorce paperwork came through on a Tuesday. I signed it in Diane's office with a pen that had a dent in the side where someone had chewed on it. Diane asked me if I was sure. I said yes. She said the house would be mine, the kids would be with me, and Tom would get visitation every other weekend and a settlement that was fair but not generous. I said okay. I didn't ask what fair meant. I didn't care. What I cared about was the silence. The house was too quiet. Sarah was at school. Mark was at college. And I was alone in a space that had been built for 4 people and now held 1. I walked through the rooms at night and I touched the walls and I thought about all the years I'd spent making this place a home. The paint colors I'd picked. The furniture I'd arranged. The rugs I'd vacuumed. All of it was mine now. And all of it felt like it belonged to someone else. I started going to therapy. Not because I thought it would fix anything. Because I didn't know what else to do. The therapist was a woman named Carol who had kind eyes and a box of tissues on her desk and a way of saying, "Tell me more about that." That made me want to scream. But I kept going. I sat on her couch and I talked about Tom and the kids and the house and the trophy. And she listened. And sometimes she asked questions. And sometimes she just sat there. You're angry, she said one session. I'm not angry. You're furious. You just don't know how to show it. I showed it at the banquet. No, that wasn't anger. That was justice. Anger is something else. Anger is the part of you that feels hurt. I don't feel hurt. Then why are you here? I didn't have an answer. I sat on her couch and I looked at the box of tissues and I thought about the answer. I didn't come up with one. But I kept coming back. Week after week. And somewhere in the middle of all that talking, I started to feel something. Not anger. Not sadness. Something in between. Something that felt like the beginning of something else. The thing about divorce is that it doesn't just end the marriage. It ends everything around it. Friendships. Routines. The way you think about yourself. I'd been Mrs. Tom Chen for so long that I'd forgotten there was another person underneath. Elena. Just Elena. The woman who'd gone to college and studied economics and had dreams about being something. I'd buried her so deep I wasn't sure she was still alive. One night, about 3 weeks after the hearing, I went to the grocery store. It was a Wednesday. The store was empty. I was pushing my cart down the aisle, looking for pasta, and I ran into Linda. From accounting. She was standing in front of the canned tomatoes, holding a can of crushed ones, staring at the label like it was a complex equation. Elena, she said. Hey, Linda. I haven't seen you in weeks. How are you? I'm okay. Bullshit. You're not okay. She said it the same way she'd said it in the office. The same bluntness. I liked it. I'd missed it. Okay, I said. I'm not okay. But I'm getting there. Good. That's good. You want to get a coffee sometime, I mean, like, outside of work. A real coffee. Not the stuff from the machine. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. We exchanged numbers. I went home with my pasta and my canned tomatoes, and I felt like I'd done something. I'd reached out. I'd connected. I'd reminded myself that there were people outside of the wreckage. The next day, Tom called. He'd been calling every day. I'd been ignoring him. But this time, I answered. Elena, he said. Thank you for picking up. What do you want? I want to see the kids. I haven't seen them in weeks. Sarah has soccer practice on Thursdays. Mark is at school. You can call them. I want to see them in person. Then schedule something. I'm not stopping you. I don't want to schedule something. I want to come over. I want to see them in their home. This isn't your home anymore. Elena, please. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But they're my kids. They're the only thing I have left. I stood in the kitchen. I held the phone to my ear. I looked out the window at the backyard, the one where we'd planted a tree when Sarah was born. Fine, I said. Come over on Saturday. Be here at 2. And don't bring Rachel. Silence. I don't bring Rachel anywhere, he said. Okay. You never said anything about her. You never asked about her. I thought you didn't want to know. I don't want to know. But I know she exists. And I don't want her in my house. She's not going to be in your house. I promise. Okay. I hung up. I stood there for a long time. The phone was warm in my hand. I thought about the fact that he'd mentioned her name. Rachel. He'd said it like it was nothing. Like she was just a person. Like she didn't matter. She mattered. She mattered because she was the proof. The proof that he'd been lying. The proof that I wasn't enough. The proof that he'd given something to someone else that he was supposed to give to me. But I wasn't angry. Not at her. She was 29. She was in marketing. She didn't know what she was getting into. I was angry at Tom. And I was angry at myself. For not seeing it. For not stopping it. For letting it happen. Saturday came. Tom showed up at 2 on the dot. He was wearing a polo shirt and khakis. He looked like he was trying to be casual. He looked like he'd rehearsed this. I opened the door and let him in. The kids were in the living room. Sarah was on her phone. Mark was home from college for the weekend. He was sitting on the couch, staring at the wall. Tom walked over to them. He hugged Sarah. She hugged him back. He tried to hug Mark. Mark didn't move. Hey, buddy, Tom said. Hey. How's school? Fine. Are you doing okay? I heard you had a test this week. Mark looked at me. I didn't know what he wanted me to say. I just nodded. It was fine, he said. I passed. Good. That's good. I stood in the doorway. I watched them. It was like watching strangers. He was trying so hard to be a father, and they were trying so hard to be his children, and none of it felt real. Tom looked at me. Can I talk to you in private? Sure. I led him to the kitchen. He stood by the counter. I stood by the sink. We were 10 feet apart. It might as well have been a mile. I'm going to be straight with you, he said. I need money. My lawyer told me I can't work in this industry anymore. The company blacklisted me. No one will hire me. I'm running out of options. Your options aren't my problem. I know. But the kids are. I can't pay child support if I don't have a job. Then get a job in a different industry. It's not that easy. It's exactly that easy. You're a salesman. You sell things. Sell something else. Elena, I'm trying. I really am. But I can't do it alone. Then don't be alone. Figure it out. He stared at me. I could see him trying to figure out how to get what he wanted. He'd always been good at that. Getting what he wanted. Okay, he said. Okay. I'll figure it out. He walked back to the living room. He spent another hour with the kids. He played board games with Sarah. He tried to talk to Mark about football. He left at 4. He hugged them both. He nodded at me. And then he was gone. I closed the door behind him. Sarah went back to her room. Mark stayed on the couch. Mom, he said. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you hate Dad? No. I don't hate him. Then why are you doing this? Because I can't be married to him anymore. Why not? I sat down next to him on the couch. He was 19. He was old enough to know the truth. But he was young enough that the truth would hurt. Because he lied to me, I said. He took things from me that weren't his to take. And he did it for a long time. Like what? Like my work. He took credit for things I'd done. He made me feel like I was invisible. Mark was quiet. He looked at his hands. Did he cheat on you? He asked. Yes, I said. He didn't say anything. I'm not telling you this to make you hate him, I said. I'm telling you because you asked. And I think you deserve to know the truth. I don't want to pick sides. You don't have to. But I feel like I have to. You don't. You're his son. And you're my son. You can love both of us. This isn't about you. He looked at me. I could see him trying to work through it. He was a good kid. He was trying to be fair. Okay, he said. Okay. He went to his room. I stayed on the couch. I stared at the wall. I thought about what it meant to be someone's mother, and someone's ex-wife, and someone's employee, and someone's friend. All the roles I'd been playing. All the hats I'd been wearing. I was tired. I was so tired. But I wasn't done. That night, I went to bed early. I lay in the dark and I thought about the future. I didn't know what it looked like. But I knew one thing. I was going to figure it out. On my terms. The next week, I got an email from Patricia. The company had decided to promote me. Not just to a new position. To a new title. Regional Sales Director. Full stop. No more sharing. No more background work. They wanted me to run the department. I read the email 3 times. I called Diane. I asked her what she thought. She said take it. I took it. I walked into the office on Monday, and everything was different. I had a corner office. I had a window. I had a team of people who reported to me. I had a desk that didn't have someone else's name on it. I sat down in the chair, and I looked at the city through the glass, and I thought about how far I'd come. Not because of them. Because of me. I started going out more. I met Linda for coffee. We talked about work and her kids and her ex-husband and my ex-husband and all the things we'd never said to each other when we were just colleagues. I made new friends. I went to dinner parties. I started running again in the mornings before work. I bought new clothes. Not for anyone else. For myself. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I started to feel like myself again. The real myself. The one I'd buried under 22 years of being someone else's wife. Tom called less often. He'd found a job finally. Something in insurance. I didn't ask for details. He paid his child support on time. He saw the kids on his weekends. He was becoming a minor character in the story of my life. And I was becoming the main character again. I didn't think about Rachel. I didn't think about the perfume or the hickey or the late nights. I thought about the spreadsheet, the trophy, the look on Tom's face when he realized what I'd done. I thought about the moment I tapped my glass and everything changed. That was the turning point. Not the divorce. Not the promotion. Not the therapy. That one moment. When I stopped being invisible and started being seen. I know it sounds dramatic. But it's true. The thing that saved me wasn't revenge. It was recognition. Not from anyone else. From myself. I finally saw what I was worth. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. 6 months after the banquet, I ran into Rachel at a coffee shop. I didn't know it was her at first. I was standing in line, waiting for my usual, and there was a woman in front of me with a green jacket and a ponytail and a phone pressed to her ear. She was talking about a marketing campaign, something about demographic targeting, and the voice was familiar in a way I couldn't place. She turned around to check the menu board, and I saw her face and I knew. I just knew. She was younger than I'd imagined. Prettier too. Her skin was clear. Her teeth were white. She looked like someone who'd never had a bad day in her life. She saw me looking at her. She smiled. It was the automatic smile people give strangers in coffee shops. And then she went back to her phone and I stood there behind her and I thought about all the things I wanted to say. I thought about the perfume on Tom's collar. I thought about the hickey. I thought about the late nights and the lies and the way he looked at me when he said her name. Rachel. Like, she was nothing. She didn't know who I was. She'd never seen my face. I could have said something. I could have introduced myself. I could have watched her face change when she realized she was standing next to the wife. But I didn't. I just stood there and I waited for my coffee and I let her walk out the door without saying a word. That was the moment I knew I was going to be okay. Not because I was over it. Because I didn't need to hurt her. She was just a symptom. She was never the disease. The disease was the lie. The disease was the part of my marriage that I'd been pretending didn't exist. And once I saw it, once I named it, it lost its power over me. I went back to work. I was still running the department. I was good at it. Better than I'd ever been. I'd stopped second-guessing myself. I'd stopped asking permission. I'd stopped waiting for someone else to validate my decisions. I just made them and moved on. Patricia retired in the spring. She was 63, and she'd been at the company for 30 years. She had a party in the conference room, and everyone gave speeches, and someone bought her a gold watch. I sat in the back and I watched her smile, and I thought about how much I'd learned from her. Not about the job. About boundaries. She'd been the one who'd told me that I was allowed to take what was mine. She'd been the one who'd believed me when I said I wanted Tom fired. She'd been the one who'd handed me the trophy in a way. Not the real one. The symbolic one. I didn't tell her that. I just shook her hand and wished her well and watched her walk out the door. The summer was quiet. Sarah went to camp for 3 weeks and I had the house to myself. I started gardening. I planted tomatoes and basil and mint and I watered them every evening and watched them grow. It was simple. It was slow. It was exactly what I needed. Tom called less and less. He'd moved into an apartment on the other side of town. He had a new girlfriend, someone else. I didn't know her name. I didn't want to know. He'd stopped being my problem. He'd stopped being anything. The kids adjusted. Sarah was better at it than Mark. She was young enough that the divorce was just a fact of life, like the weather or school. Mark had a harder time. He was 19 and he was angry and he didn't know what to do with it. I told him it was okay to be angry. I told him he could be angry at me if he needed to be. He said he wasn't angry at me. He said he was angry at his father for being stupid. I told him that was fair. We had dinner together, the 3 of us, every Thursday night. It was a ritual I'd started after the divorce. I'd cook something, usually pasta, and they'd come over and we'd sit at the table and we'd talk. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes it was awkward. Sometimes nobody said anything. But we kept doing it. We kept showing up. And that was enough. One Thursday night in August, Mark looked at me and said, "Mom, you're different." Different how, I don't know. You just are. You seem lighter. I smiled. I am lighter. Because Dad's gone, because I'm not carrying him anymore. He nodded. He went back to his pasta. Sarah looked at me, and I could see her processing. She was 15 now. She was getting older. She was starting to understand things. I'm proud of you, Mom, she said. I didn't cry. But I wanted to. That was the thing I hadn't expected. The kids. They'd always been mine, technically. But they'd been ours too. And when the ours dissolved, I thought I'd lose them. But I didn't. I just got them in a different way. A clearer way. A way that didn't have Tom in the middle. I thought about that a lot. About how much of my life had been mediated by him. Every decision. Every plan. Every future. All of it filtered through the lens of what he wanted. And now I was the lens. I was the one making the decisions. I was the one planning the future. And it was terrifying and freeing all at once. The fall came. I went back to work. I started a new project, a new sales initiative, something I'd been wanting to do for years, but hadn't had the authority to execute. I had the authority now. I had the title. I had the team. I had the budget. I had everything I'd ever wanted, and I'd gotten it all by myself. I started running again. Longer distances. Not for anyone else. For myself. I ran on the weekends, through the park, past the families and the dogs and the people on bikes. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs ached and I couldn't think about anything except the next step. It was the only time my mind went quiet. The only time I wasn't replaying everything. One Sunday morning, I was running past the lake when I saw Tom. He was sitting on a bench, reading a newspaper. He looked older. His hair was grayer. He was thinner. He didn't see me. I kept running. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I just kept going. That was the moment I knew I'd truly let go. Not when I'd signed the papers. Not when I'd seen Rachel. Not when I'd gotten the promotion. It was that moment. Running past him on a bench by the lake. And realizing I didn't have anything to say to him. I went home. I showered. I made coffee. I sat in the kitchen and I looked out the window at the garden I'd planted and I thought about how much had changed in a year. A year ago, I was standing in the same kitchen, looking at the same window, and I was someone else. I was someone who didn't know she was invisible. I was someone who thought love was supposed to be a sacrifice. I was someone who believed that if she was good enough, she'd be enough. I knew better now. I knew that being enough had nothing to do with anyone else. It had everything to do with me. I heard from Diane in October. The divorce was final. There were no more hearings, no more paperwork, no more calls from lawyers. It was over. I was officially not his wife anymore. I sat at my desk and I looked at the final decree and I felt nothing. Not relief. Not sadness. Just completion. I called the kids. I told them it was done. Sarah said okay. Mark said good. I said I loved them and I hung up and I went back to my spreadsheet. It was just a piece of paper. It didn't change anything. I'd already stopped being his wife months ago. But there was something about seeing it in writing. Something about the finality of it. It made it real in a way that nothing else had. I called Linda. I told her it was over. She said we should celebrate. I said okay. We went to a bar downtown. We drank martinis and ate fries and talked about everything and nothing. She told me about her ex-husband. I told her about mine. We laughed about how stupid we'd been. Not at ourselves. At them. At the whole institution of marriage. I don't think I'll ever get married again, she said. Me neither. That's what everyone says. I mean it. I know. That's the scary part. She was right. It was scary. But it was also liberating. I'd spent 22 years being half of a whole. And now I was whole all by myself. The rest of the year passed in a blur. Work. Kids. Running. Gardening. Therapy. I saw Carol once a month now instead of once a week. She said I was making progress. I said I didn't feel like I was making progress. She said that was normal. You're not angry anymore, she said. I'm not. You're not sad either. I'm not. What are you? I thought about it. I thought about the question. It was the same question she'd asked me months ago, and I hadn't had an answer then. I had one now. I'm okay, I said. That's all. She smiled. That's enough. It was. It really was. The thing about being okay is that it doesn't last. Not because something bad happens. Because you get used to it. And when you get used to it, you start to look for more. That's what happened to me. I got used to being okay, and I started to wonder if I could be better. I started dating. Not seriously. Just casually. I went on a few coffee dates, a few dinner dates, a few walks in the park. None of them went anywhere. I didn't want them to go anywhere. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could. That I wasn't broken. That I could sit across from a man and talk about things that weren't my divorce. I met a guy named Paul in November. He was a contractor. He built decks and fences and outdoor kitchens. He had calloused hands and a laugh that made people turn their heads. He was 48, divorced, 2 kids in college. We had dinner at a Thai place near my office. He told me about his ex-wife. I told him about Tom. We didn't dwell on it. We just said it and moved on. He asked me out again. I said yes. We went to a movie. We walked through the park. We kissed in the parking lot of a grocery store. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't supposed to be. It was just 2 people who'd been through something and were trying to figure out how to start again. I didn't fall in love with him. I didn't fall in love with anyone. But I fell into something. A rhythm. A pattern. A way of being that didn't involve my past. Paul didn't know about the trophy. He didn't know about the spreadsheet. He didn't know about the banquet. I didn't tell him. I didn't want him to see me as the woman who'd been betrayed. I wanted him to see me as the woman who'd survived. The holidays came. Thanksgiving. Christmas. New Year's. I spent them with the kids. Tom was nowhere in sight. He'd stopped trying to be part of the family. He'd stopped pretending. He was just a man who called on birthdays and sent cards and showed up for the occasional weekend. I didn't mind. It was easier this way. Cleaner. Sarah asked me about Paul. She'd seen his name on my phone. Are you dating him? She asked. Yes. Is it serious? No. Then why are you dating him? Because I like him. Mom, that's the worst reason ever. I laughed. I couldn't help it. She was 15, and she was already smarter than I'd been at 40. What's a good reason? I asked. A love. He has to be worth it. He is worth it. Then why isn't it serious? I didn't have an answer. I didn't want to tell her that I wasn't sure I could love anyone that way again. I didn't want to tell her that I'd given all my love to her father, and he'd crushed it, and I didn't have any left. I just said, I'm not ready. She nodded. She understood. She was 15, and she'd already seen her parents' marriage fall apart. She knew more about love than most adults ever would. I broke up with Paul in February. He didn't take it well. He said I was pushing him away. He said I was scared. He said I was using my ex-husband as an excuse. He was right about all of it. But I couldn't fix it. Not for him. Not for anyone. I needed to fix myself first. I went back to therapy. I told Carol what had happened. She said I was avoiding intimacy. I said I knew. She asked me why. I said because intimacy meant vulnerability and vulnerability meant getting hurt, and I'd already been hurt enough. You can't build a wall and expect someone to climb it, she said. Who said I was building a wall, Elena? You're standing right behind it. She was right. I hated that she was right. But she was. I spent the spring alone. Not lonely. Alone. There's a difference. I was in a place where I could be with myself and not feel like I was missing something. I read books. I planted more vegetables. I went on long runs. I spent time with the kids. I did my job. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't romantic. It was just life. And I was okay with that. In April, I got a letter from Tom. It wasn't a letter. It was an email. He said he'd been thinking about me. He said he was sorry. He said he wanted to meet. He said he missed me. I read it 3 times. I didn't delete it. I didn't reply. I just let it sit there in my inbox and I waited to feel something. I felt nothing. That was the thing I hadn't expected. The indifference. I'd thought I would always feel something for him. Anger. Hate. Sadness. Regret. Something. But there was nothing. He was just a man I used to know. A man who'd taken things from me. A man who'd lied to me. A man who'd hurt me. And I couldn't find it in me to care anymore. I forwarded the email to Diane. I asked her what she thought. She said don't respond. I didn't. The next month, I got a call from Mark. He was home for the summer. He'd gotten a job at a warehouse. He was saving money. He was dating a girl named Jessica. He was doing all the things 19-year-olds do. He asked me if I was okay. I said yes. He said he was proud of me. I said thank you. It was the same thing Sarah had said. Proud. They were proud of me. Not because I'd survived the divorce. Because I'd survived myself. I thought about that a lot in the months after. About what it meant to be proud of yourself. I'd spent so long looking for validation from other people. Tom. The CEO. The company. The kids. My mother. All of them. And I'd never stopped to ask myself if I was proud of me. I was. I finally was. I looked at myself in the mirror one morning and I saw someone I recognized. Not the wife. Not the mother. Not the employee. Just me. Elena. The woman who'd tapped her glass at a banquet and changed everything. The woman who'd stood up for herself. The woman who'd taken back what was hers. I wasn't the same person I'd been a year ago. I was better. Stronger. More complete. I'd been broken. But I'd fixed myself. Not with help from anyone else. With my own hands. My own choices. My own determination. I thought about the trophy. It was still on my dresser. I hadn't moved it. I hadn't put it away. I looked at it every morning when I got dressed. It was a reminder. Not of what Tom had done. Of what I'd done. I'd stood up. I'd spoken out. I'd taken back what was mine. And I'd done it in front of everyone. The banquet was packed. My colleague walked on stage to accept my sales award. I signaled the AV tech to switch slides. The screen showed his email asking me to handle his Q4 numbers and the spreadsheet proving they were mine. The CEO stood up. The crowd whistled. He handed me the trophy right there. That wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning. The beginning of me. I kept the email. The one from Tom. I never responded to it. I didn't need to. I'd already said everything I needed to say. Not to him. To myself. The words I'd said to Carol. The words I'd said to the kids. The words I'd said to Linda. They were the ones that mattered. I didn't know what came next. I didn't need to know. I just needed to keep going. One day at a time. One step at a time. One run at a time. One garden at a time. One life at a time. I ran into Tom again at the grocery store. It was a Saturday in July and I was buying watermelon, and he was standing in the produce section, holding a bag of apples, looking lost. He saw me before I saw him. I was reaching for a cantaloupe and I felt someone watching me and I turned and there he was. Elena, he said. Tom. I didn't expect to see you here. I live here. I shop here. I know. He put the apples down. You look good. You look really good. I didn't say thank you. I just stood there holding my cantaloupe. How are the kids? He asked. They're fine. Sarah got her driver's license. Did you know that? I know. I was there. Right. Of course you were. He looked down at his shoes. I'm sorry I wasn't there. It's fine. It's not fine. It's not fine at all. I should have been there. I should have been there for a lot of things. I didn't say anything. I didn't have anything to say. I've been thinking about you, he said. About us. About everything that happened. Tom. Don't. I know. I shouldn't. But I need to say it. I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not just for the spreadsheet. For everything. For all of it. You already said that. I know. But I mean it this time. I've changed, Elena. I've really changed. I've been going to therapy. I've been working on myself. I'm not the same person I was. Good for you. Good for me. Is that all you have to say? What do you want me to say? Tom, that I forgive you, that I'm proud of you, that I want to try again. He didn't answer. He just looked at me. Because I don't, I said. I don't want any of those things. I don't want you. I don't want this. I just want to buy my watermelon and go home. Is there someone else? No. There's no one else. There's just me. You're seeing someone. Paul. I heard about him. Paul is not in the picture. Then what is it? What's wrong with me? I put the cantaloupe in my cart. I looked at him. He was still the same person I'd married. The same face. The same voice. But he wasn't my husband anymore. He was just a man in a grocery store. A man I used to know. Nothing's wrong with you, Tom, I said. You're fine. You're exactly who you've always been. That's the problem. I'm not who I used to be. He stared at me. I could see the wheels turning. He was trying to figure out how to fix it. But there wasn't anything to fix. Take care of yourself, I said. And if you want to see the kids, just call them. They're not going to stop you. I walked away. I left him standing in the produce section with his apples. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I'd said everything I needed to say. I drove home. I put the groceries away. I sat in the kitchen and I thought about what had just happened. He'd said he'd changed. He'd said he was sorry. He'd said he wanted to try again. And I'd felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Not guilt. Just nothing. That was a victory. Not the kind you put on a resume. The kind that matters. The kind that means you're finally free. I called Linda. I told her what happened. She laughed. Did you really say that? She asked. I really said that. Good for you. Good for me. I'm proud of you, Elena. Everyone's proud of me. Everyone should be. You've come a long way. I really had. And I didn't need anyone to tell me that. I already knew it. The summer continued. I went to work. I saw the kids. I ran. I gardened. I lived. It was simple and it was enough. I didn't need more. I didn't want more. In August, I got a promotion. Regional Vice President. It was a bigger title, a bigger office, a bigger salary. I took it. I deserved it. I'd earned it. I had a party at my house. A small one. Just the kids and Linda and a few people from work. We sat in the backyard. We grilled burgers. We drank beer. It was the most ordinary party in the world, and it was perfect. Mark came. He brought Jessica. Sarah came. She brought a friend. They all sat in the lawn chairs I'd bought at a garage sale, and they laughed and talked and ate, and I stood there and watched them, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Contentment. Pure, simple contentment. This is nice, Linda said. She was standing next to me, holding a beer. It is. You deserve it. I know. Modest. Not modest. Just honest. She laughed. I laughed too. We stood there in the backyard, two divorced women in their 40s, and we watched our kids and our friends and our lives, and we didn't need anything else. The party ended at 10. Everyone went home. I cleaned up. I put the leftovers in the fridge. I took a shower. I went to bed. I lay in the dark and I thought about everything that had happened. A year ago, I was standing in a ballroom. A year ago, I was invisible. A year ago, I was someone else. And now I was here. In this bed. In this house. In this life. Not his wife. Not his anything. Just me. I fell asleep smiling. The next morning, I woke up early. I made coffee. I sat on the back porch and I watched the sun come up over the garden. The tomatoes were ripe. The mint was growing wild. The basil was ready to be picked. I went out and I harvested a handful of each and I took them inside and I made a salad. It was just a salad. But it was my salad. From my garden. In my house. In my life. I sat at the kitchen table and I ate it and I thought about how far I'd come. Not in miles. In something else. Something you can't measure. Something you can only feel. I'd stopped being invisible. I'd stopped being a victim. I'd stopped being his wife. I'd started being myself. I didn't know what came next. I didn't care. I just knew I was ready for it. I picked up my phone. I called Diane. I told her I wanted to change my name back. My maiden name. The one I'd had before I'd met Tom. She said she'd take care of it. She said it would take a few weeks. I said I didn't mind waiting. I hung up. I sat there. I looked at the house. The garden. The morning light. The life I'd built for myself. It wasn't the life I'd planned. It was better. The name change went through in September. I became Elena Hard again. It felt strange at first, signing documents with a name I hadn't used in 23 years. But it also felt right. Like I'd finally taken off a coat that was too heavy and too warm and too long. I didn't tell Tom. I didn't need to. He wasn't part of my life anymore. But he found out anyway. Of course he did. He called me on a Tuesday night, the first time he'd called in months. I heard you changed your name, he said. I did. Why? Because I wanted to. Elena, that's not a reason. It's the only reason I need. He was quiet. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. I want to see you, he said. I mean it. I need to see you. Face to face. Just once. Tom, I don't think that's a good idea. Please. Just this once. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to talk. I thought about it. I thought about the grocery store. I thought about the email. I thought about everything he'd done and everything he'd taken and everything I'd given him. Fine, I said. Come over tomorrow. 7 o'clock. And don't bring anyone with you. Okay. Okay, I'll be there. He hung up. I put down the phone and I sat on the couch and I waited for the anxiety to hit. It didn't. I just felt calm. Solid. Like I was standing on ground that couldn't shake. The next evening, I was in the kitchen when I heard his car pull into the driveway. I looked out the window and I watched him get out. He was wearing a suit. A new one. He'd probably bought it just for this. He looked nervous. He looked like a man who didn't know what he was walking into. I opened the door before he could knock. Come in, I said. He stepped inside. He looked around. He hadn't been in this house in over a year. It was different now. I'd changed things. New furniture. New paint. New curtains. It didn't look like our house anymore. It looked like mine. I like what you've done with the place, he said. I'm glad you like it. He walked into the living room. He sat on the couch. I sat in the chair across from him. We were facing each other. No coffee. No water. No small talk. So I said. You wanted to talk. I did. I still do. He leaned forward. Elena, I need to say this. I've been thinking about everything for months. All of it. The spreadsheet. The affair. The divorce. The way I treated you. The way I made you feel. He paused. I didn't say anything. I was wrong, he said. About everything. I was wrong to take your work. I was wrong to lie to you. I was wrong to cheat on you. I was wrong to make you feel like you didn't matter. He was talking fast. Like he'd been rehearsing this. Like he needed to get it all out before he lost his nerve. I know I can't undo any of it, he said. I know I can't go back and change the past. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because I lost my job. Because I lost you. And I didn't know what I had until it was gone. He stopped. He was breathing hard. He looked at me like he was waiting for something. Is that it? I said. What is that? All you came here to say? I came here to apologize. I came here to tell you that I still love you. That I've always loved you. That I made a mistake. A huge mistake. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix it. I looked at him. I saw the man I'd married. I saw the man I'd loved. I saw the man who'd broken me. Tom, I said. I appreciate that you came here. I appreciate that you apologized. But I don't need your apology. What? I don't need it. I don't need anything from you. Not your guilt. Not your regret. Not your love. I've spent the last year and a half learning how to live without you. And I'm not going to undo that just because you've decided you're sorry. He stared at me. Elena, I'm not asking you to undo anything. I'm just asking you to hear me out. I hear you. I hear everything you're saying. And I believe you. I believe that you're sorry. I believe that you regret it. I believe that you would do things differently if you could. But that doesn't change what happened. I know it doesn't. And it doesn't change how I feel. How do you feel? I thought about it. I thought about all the therapy sessions. All the late nights. All the runs. All the conversations with the kids. All the moments I'd spent rebuilding myself from the ground up. I feel free, I said. I feel like I finally know who I am. I'm not your wife anymore. I'm not the person you made me into. I'm someone else. Someone better. He didn't say anything. I know this is hard to hear, I said. I know it's not what you wanted. But it's the truth. And I think you deserve to hear it. You deserve to know that I'm okay. That I'm more than okay. That I'm happy. Are you happy? Yes, I said. I am. He sat back on the couch. He looked at me. And I saw it in his eyes. The realization. The moment he understood that I was really gone. That I wasn't coming back. That everything he'd done had led to this. Okay, he said. Okay. He stood up. I stood up. We faced each other in the living room. Elena, he said. I'm not going to give up. Give up on what? On you. On us. I know you're happy now. I know you've moved on. But I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep hoping. I'm going to keep proving to you that I can be the person you need me to be. Tom. That's not what I need. What do you need? I looked at him. And I realized there was only one thing left to say. One thing I hadn't said in the grocery store. One thing I'd been saving for this moment. I need you to hear me, I said. Really hear me. I need you to understand that I'm done. Not because I'm angry. Not because I'm hurt. Because I'm free. And I'm not going to give that up for anyone. Not even you. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked at the floor. Enough is enough, Tom, I said. You know what? Enough is enough. I've given you everything I had. And I'm not giving you anything else. He didn't argue. He just nodded. He walked to the door. He paused. I'm sorry, he said. I know. He walked out. He got in his car. He drove away. I closed the door. I locked it. I leaned against it. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. I walked to my bedroom. I looked at the dresser. The trophy was still there. I picked it up. I turned it over in my hands. It was just a trophy. It didn't mean anything. It was a piece of glass and metal and crystal. But it had meant something. It had meant I was someone. It had meant I was seen. I set it down. I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need anything to remind me of who I was. I knew who I was. I went to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of wine. I sat on the back porch. The garden was dark. The stars were out. It was a beautiful night. It was my night. I thought about Tom. I thought about the man I'd married and the man he'd become and the man he'd shown me at the banquet. I didn't feel sorry for him. I didn't feel angry at him. I just felt separate from him. Like he was a chapter I'd closed and put on a shelf. I thought about the kids. Sarah and Mark. They were doing well. They were happy. They were growing up. They'd survived the divorce. They'd survived their parents. I thought about Linda. About Diane. About Carol. About all the women who'd helped me get here. All the women who'd shown me that I was strong enough to do this on my own. And I thought about myself. Elena Hart. 49 years old. Mother of 2. Vice President of Sales. Gardener. Runner. Survivor. I took a sip of wine. I looked up at the stars. And I made a decision. A quiet one. A small one. I decided to let go of the last piece of it. The trophy. The spreadsheet. The email. The memory of that night. I wasn't going to forget it. I was never going to forget it. But I wasn't going to carry it with me anymore. It was time to put it down. I went back inside. I walked to the bedroom. I took the trophy off the dresser. I walked to the closet. I opened the door. I put it on the highest shelf, behind the boxes of winter clothes. I closed the door. I didn't get rid of it. I didn't throw it away. I just put it somewhere I couldn't see it every day. Somewhere it couldn't remind me of what I'd been through. I went back to the kitchen. I finished my wine. I washed the glass. I put it away. The next morning, I woke up early. I made coffee. I went to the back porch. The garden was still there. The tomatoes were still growing. The mint was still wild. I sat down. I looked at the sunrise. And I started the day. I didn't know what the day would bring. I didn't know what the future held. I just knew I was going to face it as myself. As Elena. Not as his wife. Not as his victim. Not as anything other than who I'd become. I picked up my phone. I called Sarah. She answered on the second ring. Hey, Mom, she said. Hey, sweetie. How are you? I'm okay. What's up? Nothing. I just wanted to say I love you. Love you too, Mom. I'll see you this weekend. Okay. Bye. Bye. I hung up. I looked at the garden. I looked at the house. I looked at the life I'd built. It wasn't the life I'd planned. But it was mine. And that was all that mattered.